Chapter 16. The Master Trickster Asher. Asher was dumbfounded, completely thrown off by June's cryptic statement. Then, he finally caught her drift. "Take a look at my little fire fox," June said, lifting up the small fox. Her beautiful eyes narrowed as she stared intently at Asher. "Do you see any special traits? Like maybe it could evolve, just like Ivy's honeybug?" Now understanding her intentions, Asher let out a sigh of relief, turning his gaze to the fox in her arms. And then he froze. Wait a minute, this is a little fire fox? If June hadn't said anything, he might not have even recognized it. Little Fire Fox, a high-tier beast, was known for its adorably small body. Its bushy tail took up almost 2/3 of its size, making it look like a tiny fox plush toy. It was highly sought after on the market because of its cute appearance and versatile evolution paths. After all, who could resist a pet that could evolve into a charm fox, flame fox, lightning fox, or even a mystic fox? Each of these evolved forms had unique powers and appearances, and the little fire fox's potential value would skyrocket as it grew. But the fox in front of him, which June claimed was a little fire fox, was definitely not tiny anymore. It was about the size of a small dog, with its signature fluffy tail still taking up 2/3 of its body. Most flame foxes had a fiery red coat, often patterned with markings that hinted at their potential for further evolution. When well-trained, little fire foxes could eventually evolve into a high-tier beast, the flame spirit fox. So, it was no surprise that little fire foxes fetched high prices on the market. Owning one was something only the wealthy could afford, given that even an unevolved one could easily cost millions. Asher glanced again at this particular fox, his expression turning curious. What exactly have this fox been through to end up in such a state? For a brief moment, his hand hovered over the emergency button. He was beginning to suspect he was dealing with some sort of elaborate scam or pet abuse. June snapped. "What's with that look?" No. Don't misunderstand, Asher," Ivy hurriedly explained, alarmed. "This really is a little fire fox." Asher let out a breath, removing his hand from the button and giving June an apologetic smile. "My apologies, that was a misunderstanding. So, Miss June, are you here for treatment for little fire fox's fur issues?" "June, little fire fox, carrot. It's not a fur issue," June clarified, hugging her whimpering little fire fox. It was just an accident during a battle. Not being thrown off rail by Asher's question, she continued probing. "So, you're saying my little fire fox shows no signs of evolution?" Asher hesitated, scratching his head as if struggling with how to respond. "Miss June, why do you think I could help your little fire fox evolve? Is this girl somehow know my special talent?" Asher's mind was racing, running over every interaction he'd had, wondering if he'd ever let anything slip. June just shrugged, eyes gleaming with confidence. "Call it intuition." This left Asher momentarily speechless. Intuition? Is she serious? Yet the look in June's eyes showed she wasn't kidding. She truly believed it. Asher. Internally, he felt a mix of emotions. What should he even call this? Luck of a blind guess. But things grew even more complicated when he activated his insight skill to examine the fox, and a familiar panel popped up. Beast Little Fire Fox. Attribute Fire. Type Mid-tier, low-grade beast. Level Tier 2, high level. Skills Flame Bite, Fire Attack. Evolution Paths Flame Spirit Fox, Fire Queen Fox. Evolution requirements not met. Status: my beautiful fur, my precious, pretty fur, all gone. Tempted? He absolutely was. This was the perfect opportunity, a pet with fire abilities, just waiting to be borrowed. But looking at June's confident expression, the way she clearly believed in his evolution powers, he hesitated. He needed a fire element pet to learn new skills, sure, but did he really want to risk having this feisty young lady latching onto him? No, that sounded like a nightmare waiting to happen. Unless... No. He shook his head. Better to turn her down. Taking on a challenge was one thing, but getting entangled with someone like June? Hard pass. "I'm not as amazing as you think, Miss June," Asher said with a polite smile, his refusal clear. "I'm just a regular guy, trying to get by as a pre-licensed beast master. June pursed her lips, running a hand through the little fire fox's tangled fur, unwilling to let go of the idea just yet. But you must know something about Ivy's honeybug evolution. She insisted. Maybe a little, Asher admitted, much to the shock of Ivy and June. Wait, wasn't he just going to claim it was all luck? But Asher had a reason for admitting this. Although he wasn't eager to assist this rich young lady, he still needed a source of fire skills. Helping one pet evolve might be a fluke, but doing it again? People would start asking questions. It wouldn't hurt to have a plausible cover. Clearing his throat, he began his well-practiced story. I'm starting my final year of high school soon, which means I'll be preparing for the college entrance exams. As a pre-licensed beast master from a less-than-wealthy background, I've had to plan carefully for my future. He spoke as if every word had been deeply considered, with a touch of helplessness that sounded all too real. My choices of career and specialization in college matter a lot to me, he continued. The fields of beast evolution studies and pet care are my top choices. Evolution studies is a stable career with strong state support, and pet care is a rapidly growing industry thanks to pet competitions and beauty contests. Since I'm already a pre-licensed beast master, I lean toward evolution studies, so I've been reading up on it a lot. He'd even gotten notes from Professor Iris. Technically, he wasn't lying. His explanation left Ivy and June stunned. Wait, really? Neither of them had thought so far ahead. As the daughters of well-to-do families, they figured they'd just pick a college major when the time came. And here he was, with a clear plan and even the necessary background reading. Asher looked at their astonished faces with a gentle smile. Ivy's honeybug was special, so I just had a hunch that maybe she could evolve. That's all. It was a simple thought, not really something I'd call doing anything. He spread his hands open in a harmless gesture, giving them an open, honest look. What? Dodging the question? Evading the truth? He would never. Besides, next time he helped a pet evolve, he'd just say it was thanks to all that early reading. June mulled it over, nodding hesitantly. That does make sense. Shall we have little fire foxes fur looked at? Asher asked, skillfully changing the topic. She looks quite upset about her appearance. A grooming shop should be able to neaten things up. With that, he successfully showed the two now-dazed young ladies out the door, gently steering them toward a grooming shop. Only after they reached the shop and sat down did June suddenly snap out of her daze. Wait, no. I've been tricked. June stomped her foot, too flustered to form a coherent sentence. But she was certain Asher had pulled a fast one on her. He was totally messing with us. But what he said made sense. Ivy said innocently, her wide, doe-like eyes blinking in confusion. June shot her an exasperated look. You're hopeless. You'd probably thank him even if he sold you off. Chapter 17. Begging you to be my student. Ivy pressed her lips together, smiling shyly as she lowered her gaze. But Asher wouldn't lie to me. He saved Nene. Asher is truly a good person. June, catching on immediately to Ivy's thoughts, rolled her eyes so hard they almost stayed back there. I'm not giving up that easily. She hugged little Firefox, marching into the grooming shop ahead. With a wave of her hand, she declared, give my little Firefox the full work. I want her looking as stunning as ever. Once her little Firefox was back to its best, she'd be ready for round 2 with Asher. Achoo! Asher let out a huge sneeze, startling little Raven on his shoulder and hopping back and forth in a fluster. Easy there, he reassured the little bird, soothing it with a pat. Seeing little Raven still a bit skittish, hopping nervously from one foot to the other, Asher brought out some extra food for it. All right. How about a snack? Little Raven raised its head, beak already nibbling at Asher's fingers in eagerness. Hurry! Amused, Asher held up a piece of the red mudworm for little Raven, who devoured it with such relish that it seemed like the best meal in the world. Next, he offered it the mixed fresh fruits. Little Raven took a few quick bites, finishing each piece in 3 or 4 pecks. A few bites of worm, a few bites of fruit. Little Raven was clearly in heaven. Watching little Raven enjoy its snack so much, Asher felt his own mouth start to water. He glanced down at the fruit in his hand and hesitated a moment. All right, fine. He admitted it. I am curious. After all, who with a pet hadn't at least wondered what their pet's food tasted like? He popped half a piece of the mixed fruit in his mouth, and the taste hit him. It is delicious. Eyes wide, he quickly finished off the other half. And then, Asher looked down to find Little Raven staring at him in shock. Little Raven, Omega Omega. Its little yellow beak hung open in disbelief. Cough, cough. Asher cleared his throat, cheeks faintly red as he felt a stab of guilt. All right, maybe I shouldn't have done that. He reached out to gently pat Little Raven's head, speaking softly to comfort it. When I go to the city, I'll buy you some special fruit. How about that? But to Asher's surprise, Little Raven's gaze only grew more complex. Then, as if suddenly understanding something, Little Raven pushed the worms and fruit toward Asher with its wings, giving him gentle pats on the hand. It didn't take long for Asher to realize what was happening. Little Raven, do you think I don't have enough to eat? So I'm taking your food? The fact that his own pet thought he was so poor he had to steal its food left Asher speechless. He sighed deeply. All right, making money definitely needs to be a top priority now. Otherwise, Little Raven really might think I am a broke beast master who could only afford to mooch snacks from his pet. By the time Asher clocked out of work and headed home, Little Raven still didn't look convinced that he wasn't starving. He sighed again, giving in. Well, we'll have plenty of time to work on this, he muttered, reaching out to pat the little feather tuft on Little Raven's head. After clocking out, Asher picks up a package and head home. Because Little Raven needed plenty of sunlight and moonlight exposure, Asher planned not to keep it in his beast space too often. After they both had dinner, Little Raven finally stopped trying to share its food with him once it saw that he had a hearty meal. Asher exhaled in relief. All right, let's get your new stuff set up. Everything I ordered for you just arrived. Sitting down on the floor, he started unpacking the boxes with Little Raven beside him. Bird-friendly shampoo, a few pieces of bird-specific furniture. They soon had the whole floor covered in supplies. He was just about to give Little Raven a nice, thorough bath when his phone buzzed unexpectedly. To his surprise, it was a message from Professor Iris. Iris, I heard you contracted a mutated oriental peacock. What's going on up there? Asher, just wanted to give it a shot, Professor Iris. By the way, how's your research going? Trying to dodge the question, Asher quickly changed the subject. As expected, it worked like a charm. Iris, TSK. Don't rub salt in the wound. That troublesome bug. Who would have thought that even with the evolution conditions known, replicating it would be so hard? Once she got started on her research woes, Professor Iris couldn't stop herself from venting. Asher chuckled softly. Of course, he had suspected this would happen the moment he heard the Alliance's rating of lower extraordinary for the fairy butterfly. After all, Oriental peacock evolution to the mid-tier wasn't easy, let alone for a honeybug, one of the most ordinary of pet beasts. While Asher's insight skill had graded it as a middle extraordinary, the human evaluation had kept it lower. Why? His abilities rating system wasn't influenced by human intervention. It was purely rational and far more precise. So where did this discrepancy come from? After some thought, Asher had figured it out. There were countless honey bugs, and they bred to near pest levels each spring. However, a honey bug that didn't fear danger, that wouldn't simply die off, now that was rare. In fact, the forest around Aspen Grove Village was swarming with honey bugs. It wasn't an exaggeration. There were 3 or 4 on every tree. Birds practically treated them as snacks. Yet Asher hadn't found even one among them that met the evolution conditions. So, could Professor Iris really hope to recreate such an evolution? Asher, Professor Iris, finding a fearless honeybug might be nearly impossible. If this doesn't work, maybe broaden the search range. Or consider ordinary folks who might care for their honeybugs as much as Ivy does. Iris, I actually tried a few beast masters with contracted honeybugs, but it didn't work. But I hadn't thought about ordinary people keeping them as pets. That's an interesting angle. I'll tell Rob to look into it. Asher, glad I could help, Professor. Iris, don't get formal with me. So, come on, what made you contract that Oriental peacock? I checked in with the breeding base, They said its mutation isn't promising. I may not know you well, but you don't strike me as the type to take on an oriental peacock without a reason. Asher was genuinely taken aback. Is Professor Iris actually that concerned about me? She had even gone as far as reaching out to the breeding base to confirm the situation. Realizing he couldn't easily brush her off, Asher thought carefully before responding. Asher, well, I won't hide it from you, Professor. I'm interested in studying beast evolution. I'd read plenty of papers on it before, and seeing Nene evolve only fueled my interest. Choosing this oriental peacock is a gamble, a thought that its mutation might just lead to an unknown evolution path. I wanted to see if it could be done. Iris, I admire your ambition, but have you considered what'll happen if you fail? Asher, yes, Professor. If the evolution doesn't succeed, I'm confident I'll still get into the program I want on my own merit. I can handle failure. But if it works, Iris, then you'll be soaring to new heights. I might even beg you to be my student. Iris, all right, I'll look forward to your results. Who knows? Maybe new blood in the field is just what we need. Asher smiled faintly. Yes, with high risk came high reward. He had managed to set things up just right with Professor Iris, creating a foundation for his upcoming plans. Helping a few other beasts evolve before Little Raven took the leap wouldn't seem so unusual now, right? 3 or 4 days went by. Asher's bond with Little Raven had noticeably deepened, and he could feel the progress meditation had brought to his mental energy. Though the improvement was slight, it was still impressive. After all, cultivating one's mental energy was a long journey. Making progress in a short period like this, he suspected his strengthened soul from reincarnation was giving him an edge. But one problem still pricked him. He hadn't yet found a fire-type pet with suitable skills for Little Raven to learn. Fire-type pets are some of the most popular combat choices for pre-licensed beastmasters. How have I still not run into one? Is it because Aspen Grove Village is just too remote? Well, I can always consider that little fire fox. Chapter 18. Pay-to-win player. Asher had just been thinking about giving the grass another chance. But, do you know the grass grew back all on its own? Seeing June appear at his door once more, Asher's face clearly showed his bewilderment. Seriously? A wealthy young lady like you is here again? It's because I find you pleasing to the eye, June said, batting her slightly upturned peach blossom eyes with a straight face. She raised the newly groomed little firefox, who looked fluffier and cuter than ever. Can you really say no to such an adorable little fox? Doesn't your heart hurt just thinking about it? Yip yip wah. Little firefox played along perfectly, blinking its big, watery eyes at Asher, looking as pitiful as if being rejected was the worst crime in the world. Asher sighed. Miss June, are you sure you want to trust me? Even though I'm just a novice who's still figuring things out? Hearing the hint of willingness in his tone, June waved her hand, sounding confident. I just want to give it a try. If Little Firefox can evolve into Blaze Fox, that will be perfect. If it cannot, well, it isn't like you can really mess it up, right? If evolution didn't work out in the end, June would just consider it a nice outing for Little Firefox. All right, let me take a look at Little Firefox and tell me more about its background. Asher took the fox from her hands, pretending to listen as he covertly activated his eyes of insight again. He opened the evolution paths for Blaze Fox and Fox Queen and checked the specific requirements. The more he read, the less he felt like talking. Why? Evolution requirements for Blaze Fox. Reach level 3, not met. Master 4 fire skills, not met. Feed high-grade fire attribute food for 30 days, met. Consume 7 fire elemental stones, met. Consume blaze fruit, not met. Once all conditions are met, it can evolve into Blaze Fox. Evolution requirements for Fox Queen. Goodwill, 100, 68 out of 100. Reach level 4, not met. Master 6 fire skills, not met. Feed high-grade fire attribute food for 60 days, met. Consume 15 fire elemental stones, 13/15. Consume lava fruit, not met. Once all conditions are met, it can evolve into Fox Queen. Asher was momentarily silent. For the first time, he felt a real sense of class resentment. Really? Who feeds their pet this many high-grade materials? High-grade fire attribute food, fire elemental stones, sun crystal powder, Each one is worth a fortune. Beast masters don't usually spend so much on their pets unless they have a clear purpose, like meeting an evolution threshold. But with June, Asher was starting to feel the sting of envy. Why can't I have been born into wealth? Just like her. June was still talking about her approach to raising little firefox. If it wants treats, I give it treats. If it wants to watch TV, I let it. Asher gave her a small, understanding smile. Sounds like you're all about the happy lifestyle, right? June nodded without hesitation. Exactly. All about happiness. Asher's mouth twitched as he replied. If you raise it like this, its level is basically stacked entirely from material boosts. June blinked, then mulled it over for a few seconds. That's not entirely true, right? I often take little firefox to battles. I wouldn't say it's unbeatable, but it has a solid winning record. 10 wins out of 12. In your competition are your classmates, right? Yeah, what's wrong with that? Asher rubbed his forehead. What's wrong? There is a lot wrong. Taking a deep breath, he held back his frustration, realizing the enormous difference between them. Do any of your classmates come from families as wealthy as yours? June blinked again. No, they don't. There you go, Asher said, trying to explain patiently. Little Firefox wins against your peers not because you've trained it well, but because its base level is high and it has excellent potential. On top of that, June had fed it endlessly. Thanks to her constant spoiling, Little Firefox had a decent power level and could easily crush the average pet. Have you trained it properly? Technically, with Little Firefox's grade and level, it should have learned at least 3 skills by now. But it only has 2, Flame Bite and Fire Breath. Once again, Asher's questioning left June speechless. Well, about that. Asher sighed. A true lady of privilege. Through and through. Even Nene, back when she was just an unassuming honeybug, had mastered 3 skills before she evolved. For Little Firefox to only have 2 skills was practically unheard of. The only explanation was that June hadn't invested much effort into training it. Well, I just figured it wasn't. June tried to argue, but her voice trailed off under Asher's silent gaze. Before long, she fell completely silent. Yikes! For some reason, the way Asher was looking at her made her feel as if she was being scolded by her parents. And that was scary. What should I do now? She asked, finally giving in. Train Little Firefox. Work on its skills and battle experience to help it learn more, Asher said with a smile, so convincing that June couldn't muster a word of protest. Oh, she replied softly. Training, is that really the solution? June looked at Asher with a mixture of doubt and suspicion. She was fairly certain he was trying to pull a fast one on her. It was like he was using her lack of training experience as an excuse to push her away. Seeing June's accusing look, Asher felt like sighing again. Making money is hard. Winning people's trust is harder. And dealing with someone as wealthy as this brat is the hardest of all. When it came to evolving Little Raven into a radiant peacock, his main obstacle was a lack of funds. So, he had to grind it out. But with June, everything was the opposite. If something could be solved with money, it was no big deal. She'd pour in cash until she got what she wanted. Putting in personal effort, though? Sorry, that wasn't in her playbook. Deciding he might as well commit to helping Little Firefox evolve, Asher dropped the evasive act. I'm not just brushing you off here. For a beast master, training is a crucial part of raising a pet, he said seriously. To evolve into either Fox Queen or Blaze Fox, Little Firefox would need to meet skill requirements. And for Asher, who intended to borrow some of those fire skills, this training was necessary. So one more thing, after a moment's thought, Asher added, in my research on pet evolution, I have a new theory. I'm not certain about it, but if you're willing, I'd like to test it out. June's eyes lit up. If it didn't involve training, she was interested in anything. What's your theory? Tell me. The goodwill level between beast masters and their pets. It can also be called the affinity level. Little Raven's evolution into 3-legged golden crow required a high affinity level. Similarly, for Little Firefox to evolve into Fox Queen, affinity needed to be maxed out. Yet, none of the documented evolution paths he'd found had included an affinity requirement. Is it just that no one had discovered it? Asher saw this as a potential research direction. If he presented goodwill level as his discovery, he could explain all future evolution cases in terms of affinity requirements. It would make sense and give him a perfectly logical cover. The goodwill level between beast masters and their pets? June looked at him curiously, surprised by his suggestion. What kind of idea is that? Goodwill can actually be quantified? She asked. And can it really affect a pet's evolution? Asher nodded, and then he began to craft his story with perfect sincerity. I think Honeybug's evolution might have been related to affinity. In other words, his art of god-level yapping and sincere tone started to work wonders. Chapter 19. Little Raven says no to mischief. Asher isn't your average smooth talker. He is the kind of persuasive that comes with a touch of sincerity. Besides, wasn't caring for a stubborn honeybug that dared to defy odds out of pure affection another way to express affinity? Affinity between a beast master and their pet may be intangible, but it truly affects a pet's psychology and evolution. That's what I believe. Asher smiled as he handed Little Firefox back to June, then gently cupped Little Raven, perched on his shoulder. One of the reasons I chose Little Raven was because I wanted to see if my theory is right. I want to know if Little Raven will become stronger for me. Hearing Asher's words, Little Raven hopped twice, lifting its wings to nuzzle against his hand. A thoughtful, affectionate little bird, that is for sure. June watched them, her expression full of sympathy. TSK, TSK, TSK. Such a poor bird, to end up with such a demanding beast master. He's squeezing every bit of effort out of this bird. But if affinity could be measured, then my little Firefox would definitely be off the charts, June declared, proudly lifting her head. She might not be a top-tier beast master, but as Little Firefox's owner and friend, she was top-notch. She loved Little Firefox, and Little Firefox adored her just as much. Asher took another look at Little Firefox's 68 out of 100 affinity score and blinked. Have you considered you might be a little overconfident? June hugged Little Firefox, her eyes shining with certainty, and began snuggling it fiercely. No way. Absolutely no way. Little Firefox's love for me is unquestionable. Yip yip wah. In June's tight embrace, Little Firefox squirmed, using its paws to push at her face. With a blissful look, June said, Little Firefox loves me so much. Look, it's kneading me with its adorable paws. If it didn't love me, it wouldn't be doing this. Asher covered his mouth to stifle a laugh. Right? Little Firefox sure loves you, otherwise it would have scratched her by now instead of just pushing away. Considering that June handled Little Firefox like this regularly, without getting scratched, he was sure it really did care for her. Out of curiosity, Asher found himself wondering, how exactly is affinity measured? Is it purely based on the beast master's love for their pet? Or the pet's love for their beast master? Or perhaps both? Either way, I think it's worth exploring. Helping Little Firefox evolve into Fox Queen would be the perfect opportunity to research affinity. He could later explain it as a groundbreaking discovery in his study of evolution. It would be eye-catching, but not so much as to draw unwanted attention. After a brief pause, Asher coughed and freed Little Firefox from its predicament. Once you're back, make sure to train Little Firefox and let it learn a few more skills. As for affinity, let that develop naturally, Asher suggested, leaving June with a new, daily to-do list she couldn't ignore. Initially reluctant, June was now fired up, inspired by the concept of affinity. Looking down at her Little Firefox, she patted her chest confidently. Just wait and see. In no more than 3 days, with our mutual affection, my Little Firefox will surely learn a new skill. June was brimming with thrill. Little Firefox stared in shock. Is this really necessary? Amused by their reactions, Asher gave her an encouraging smile. Confidence is good. I'll look forward to your good news in 3 days. With her resolve set, June marched off with Little Firefox, filled with confidence. Meanwhile, Asher turned his attention back to Little Raven, still resting in his hand. Raising the little bird to eye level, he said warmly, Little Raven, it's time for us to start training too. For the past few days, he hadn't started training with Little Raven, wanting to let it adjust to their bond after the contract. Now that they'd settled into a rhythm, it was time to get to work. In general, a Oriental peacock could instinctively master 2 or 3 basic skills. But with Little Raven's unfavorable mutation, it only had a single skill: Eagle Eye. Eagle Eye enhances eyesight with a chance to intimidate the opponent when used. That was it. No other skills. With just one intimidation-based skill, Little Raven couldn't rely on it alone to spar with other beast masters once school started. Learning new skills was now a priority. While he hadn't yet found a fire-type pet to copy from, Asher did have Heart of Protection, a unique skill gifted by the fairy butterfly. It was time to see if Little Raven could learn it. With the pet station deserted and Ron taking a nap in the equipment room, Asher didn't have to be too cautious. He activated his Eye of Insight and selected Heart of Protection. The screen flashed twice before showing a prompt. Please choose a pet to learn this skill. Pet: Little Raven. Without hesitation, Asher selected Little Raven. In the next instant, Heart of Protection vanished from the screen. Asher. He looked down at Little Raven, who was staring back at him. They exchanged puzzled glances. The skill is gone? And why does Little Raven look like nothing has changed? Where's the promised flash of light or any kind of effect? Thankfully, his Eye of Insight skill was still active, allowing him to view Little Raven's updated profile. Pet: Oriental peacock. Species: mid-tier, low rank. Level: Tier 2 mid-rank. Skills: Eagle Eye, Heart of Protection. Evolution path: 3-legged golden crow. Selected. Evolution items needed: incomplete. Why are you staring at me? Is it because you're captivated by my beauty? Ah, such natural charm. It's almost a curse. Seeing that Little Raven had successfully learned a new skill, Asher was thrilled. Then he noticed Little Raven's inner thoughts and fell silent. Just what exactly is this bird thinking about all day? And this self-proclaimed charm? Asher looked down, eyeing the feathered crown on Little Raven's head, feeling a mix of curiosity and mischief. One look? I will just take one look. He was simply curious about Little Raven's gender, really. Certainly not trying anything inappropriate. Sensing Asher's intent, Little Raven's eyes widened in shock. Oh! Before Asher could move, Little Raven fluffed up and, for the first time, zipped into his spirit space on its own. Asher blinked in surprise. Wait, hold on. Since when could a pet enter the spirit space on its own? During this past month, Asher had combed through his middle and high school textbooks, and he distinctly recalled the section on beast masters and the spirit space. According to what he read, the spirit space is located within the beast master's mental realm, and a contracted pet has residency, but no key to enter or leave freely. In simple terms, the spirit space is like a house with a locked door. The key is supposed to stay with the beast master. Pets can't just enter or exit at will. This setup is designed to protect the beast master's mental realm. In fact, the research recommended that apprentice beast masters avoid repeatedly summoning and storing their pets, as it could strain their spirit space, permanently limiting its growth. So then, what just happened? Utterly confused, Asher pulled out his phone. Ask someone nearby? No. Phantom Net to the rescue. Search query: can a pet freely enter and exit the beast master's spirit space? Top answer: yes. Achieving stable mental linkage with your pet won't be a dream. Just reach grade 7 beast master. The search result left Asher with even more questions than before. Grade 7 beast master? Stable mental linkage? He'd clearly stumbled into unknown territory. Chapter 20. Smack your way to skill mastery. After an extended search online, Asher still didn't find the answer he wanted. The answers he came across were a chaotic mix of ideas. Basically, they all suggested the same thing. Only high-ranking beast masters have a spirit space where pets can enter and exit at will. And the reason? No one really knew. After all, how many real, high-level beast masters would waste time answering this kind of question online? Guess I'll have to look for a proper book on this. Realizing how unreliable online answers could be, Asher opted for more professional sources. But when it came to the spirit space and pet space, most of the content was highly specialized and buried in academic textbooks. For now, he could only jot down the mystery and make a mental note not to reveal it around others. Keeping a low profile is always wise, he said with a sage-like nod. What? His future was destined to be stormy? Well, he'd worry about that when the storm hit. Life at the pet service center was pretty relaxed. Asher spent his days basking Little Raven in sunlight and getting it familiar with its newly learned skill. 3 days breezed by, then another 3 days. When he received a message from June, Asher couldn't help but laugh out loud. June! Ugh! For 2 days in a row, I've reached the training site only to find Little Fire Fox nowhere in sight. Give me 3 more days. This time, I swear it'll master a new skill. Asher, sure. As long as Miss Eris is happy, that is all that matters. Asher kept the rest to himself, but he figured she was probably enjoying herself. After all, how many beast masters get to experience the thrill of outwitting their own pet? From what Asher had gathered so far, every time June tried training with Little Fire Fox, it either got itself hurt or suddenly felt unwell. The first few times, June had been downright panicked, almost ready to hire an in-house vet, until she caught Little Fire Fox, who was suffering from heat stroke, secretly munching on a can of stolen meat. Caught red-pawed, Little Fire Fox could only muster a helpless yip-yip-a-woo, hoping its cuteness would save it. But after being duped 3 times in a row, and ghosted by Asher 3 times too, June decided enough was enough. Training was non-negotiable. With a determined June on one side and a lazy Little Fire Fox on the other, their battles of will were officially on. Every few days, Asher got a front-row seat to this entertaining drama. Life is pretty sweet. HM, this time it looks like Miss Eris is serious. I'd bet she's about to make some real progress over the next 3 days. Asher chuckled, fairly confident. Learning a new skill wasn't impossible for a pet, but it wasn't easy either. Patience, perseverance, endurance, and talent, it took a bit of everything. But the thing about progress was the lower the starting point, the quicker the improvement. Learning skills worked the same way for pets. If they only knew a few, there were plenty of common skills for them to pick up. Adding these past few days together, it had been nearly 2 weeks since training started. Even Little Raven had fully mastered Heart of Protection by now. Heart of Protection forms a circular, transparent shield around the user, lasting 45 seconds. Provides immunity to all damage, with reduced effect from counter-elements. It is a reliable defensive skill. Although Little Raven now have a basic survival skill, it still lacks offensive power. Asher glanced at Fairy Butterfly's recognition score, still a measly 30 points. He almost wanted to message Professor Iris and ask when they planned to make things official. He really needed access to Fairy Butterfly's skills. He wasn't asking for much. Just the special skill, Blinding Flash, to dazzle opponents and disrupt their focus. Fairy Butterfly, one of the hardest skills in the book? You're welcome to try. Ahem. With Fairy Butterfly's skills still out of reach and Little Fire Fox needing more time, Asher considered taking advantage of an upcoming day off. Maybe he'd bring Little Raven to the Beast Master Training Center for a few rounds. Facing real opponents might even inspire Little Raven to pick up a new skill. Lost in thought, Asher suddenly felt a tiny, sharp jab on his cheek. Looking down, he found Little Raven gently poking his face with its yellow beak. Noticing Asher's attention, Little Raven paused mid-peck. Asher could almost see the guilty glint in its black, beady eyes. He smiled internally, but kept a stern expression on his face, trying to look as serious as he could. Little Raven froze even more. Its head bobbed a little like it was debating whether to peck him again or not. Finally, Asher couldn't hold back and burst into laughter. Little Raven's eyes widened in shock. How dare he? Deceiving a poor bird like me? Outraged, Little Raven resumed its pecking with full force. Ha! Asher chuckled, reaching to pat the tuft of feathers on Little Raven's head. All right, I'm sorry. You must be hungry, huh? Let's get you something to eat. Hearing this, Little Raven paused its woodpecker impression. Asher reached into his pocket, rummaging around, and his face took on a guilty expression. I was in a rush this morning and totally forgot to bring your food. He looked Little Raven in the eye, an expression of sincere regret on his face. Little Raven just stared back, like it was trying to see if he was telling the truth. I'm serious, no joke. I forgot this time. Asher raised his hand, offering a small bag of bread. Look, all I have is this bread. How about a few bites to hold you over? I'll grab your food as soon as I'm off work. Seeing the bag of bread, little Raven's frustration flared. Peck, 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 peck. Transformed into an indignant woodpecker, little Raven pecked Asher all over his face. Mid-peck, however, both Asher and little Raven froze. Wait, what just happened? For a split second, they both felt something click, a sudden connection that flickered and then vanished. Not quite understanding what just occurred, Asher quickly activated his eye of insight to check little Raven. And there it was. A new skill had appeared under little Raven's profile. Peck attack. Asher. Little Raven. 0-0. Little Raven. If I say it was an accident, would you believe me? Asher could practically read little Raven's guilty plea in its round, panicked eyes. Covering his face, he muttered, "What is this? An accidental crit to the teammate? Friendly fire? Gaining new skills by assaulting me?" Sensing it might have gone a bit too far, little Raven hopped onto Asher's shoulder, snuggling against him in a clumsy attempt to make peace. As if saying, "Come on, master, let's snuggle. Don't be mad." What could Asher do but forgive his little bird? Still, maybe thanks to this new skill, his face was now covered in all sorts of little red marks. Handsome? No. Today he was a handsome guy with random blotches all over his face. Is this some sort of rite of passage for all pet owners? Asher muttered, tearing off bits of bread to feed little Raven as he sighed. Getting scratched by cats, getting pawed by dogs, those are pretty common, right? If I got pecked by my bird, well, that isn't too strange. And it even led to learning a new skill. A mixed blessing, I suppose. Noticing Asher's grumbles, little Raven gently nibbled his fingertip in what seemed like an apology. The pecks were light, almost ticklish, making Asher laugh as he stroked the tuft on little Raven's head. "Nice texture," he commented. As a beast, little Raven's feathers felt even softer than ordinary birds. "Only thing is, your peck attack could use a bit more power." With a thoughtful look, Asher rubbed his chin. "This level of attack won't get you far in a real battle. Looks like we'll need a lot more training." Little Raven shot him a look of disdain. "Low attack power? I only held back because you are a fragile little human. Otherwise, you'd be covered in bruises by now." Little Raven shook its head in resignation. "Oh well, what can I do? I can't just dump him as my beast master, can I? Guess it'd just have to wait for the day he'd finally see its true might." With a proud tilt of its head, little Raven gulped down the last bit of bread and thought, "One day, you will learn who's boss." Chapter 21. Class chat explodes. Stuffed to the brim, little Raven lay limp in Asher's palm, playing dead. Too full. Its round little belly felt uncomfortable. It gave him a plaintive look with those soulful beady eyes, imploring him. It kept staring at him. Finally, Asher sighed and started rubbing its little belly, which made little Raven close its eyes and settle into its very own belly massage. Asher let out a sigh. Pecked 1 minute, pampering this little trouble the next. What did I do to deserve this? All right, I'm the one that brought it to myself. Asher didn't complain. He just accepted his role as a dutiful bird caretaker. As he continued massaging little Raven, the gentle sunlight of the late morning bathed them both, and little Raven actually dozed off. Asher carefully placed it on the small cushion he'd prepared especially for it. As he was about to release his hand, his phone suddenly buzzed. Little Raven startled awake, flipping onto its back. Hurriedly, Asher grabbed his phone and, with lightning speed honed over 2 lifetimes of singlehood, switched it to silent mode. After rubbing little Raven's belly a bit more, he soothed it back to sleep. Only when he was sure it was settled did Asher cautiously withdraw his hand and check the notification. And just one glance at it made him raise an eyebrow. A message from the class group chat? And they tagged everyone in it? Only the class teacher had permission to do that. In the few minutes it took Asher to put his phone on silent, the class chat had already exploded to 99+ messages. Scrolling up a bit, he quickly found a reason. "Mr. Arthur, class teacher attention, everyone. This year's applications for the Beast Breeding Center have been announced. Check if you got a spot. Those who didn't, Make sure you contract a Beast soon so it doesn't disrupt your studies in senior year. Messages immediately started pouring in. Application? What application? It's a joke. Rolling eyes.jpg. Pass? You're right. Ever since I started high school, I've applied every year and still haven't gotten in. Long given up hope on that. I feel this on a spiritual level. Applying to get into the Alliance's breeding centers? It's a scam, I'm telling you. Most of the responses were complaints. And for good reason. It was all too common. Being one of the top high schools in New York City, the city's 11th high school had a dedicated Beast masterclass for the awakened. For regular people, the ratio of those who awakened as Beast Masters was about 20-1, with most awakening between ages 14 and 18. After that, the odds dropped significantly. Between being a top school and the specialized class, Asher's class had only 29 students. Most of them came from modest backgrounds, which explained why Asher had said before that June's little firefox would easily dominate among their classmates. In this case, the best choice for most of them was to secure a spot with the Alliance's breeding center. But from the complaints in the group, it was clear the chances? Very slim. Almost none. Year after year, applications failed to go through. Asher could guess that if he hadn't had special help this year, he'd probably be in the same boat. A chance at being 1 in a million? Not for a free-to-play player like him. I think I actually got in. A little further down, a message appeared. Asher understood why the chat had hit 99+ messages in under 5 minutes. Turns out, they really had a 1 in a million lucky star in their midst. No different than hitting the lottery, really. The group exploded. What? No way. I always thought this was just a cash grab, and no one ever actually got in. Someone in our class got it? I don't believe it until I see it. Screenshot.jpg. Asher opened the image out of pure curiosity. He just wanted to know what proof of such insane luck looked like. The screenshot was ordinary, blurring out the application number and other sensitive details, though the name was left intact. Congratulations, Lucas. You've been granted purchasing privileges at the New York City Jade Blossom Breeding Center. With this application number, you can visit the center to purchase a Jade Blossom Beast anytime before August 31st. Asher raised an eyebrow. The Jade Blossom Breeding Center? The one place he hadn't visited. He was kind of curious about that base, but he'd been in such a rush to get Little Raven that he'd missed his chance to tour the last one. Not that he regretted it. Just a hint of curiosity remained. The Jade Blossom was a low-tier, mid-level beast creature. Not particularly strong, but there must have been some unique advantage to it if the Alliance was breeding them. The Alliance didn't do charity. Why is the gap between people so big? Class rep, can I rub a little luck off you? Let me get in on that luck too. How come I don't have that kind of good fortune? Missed out on the Alliance's breeding centers. Can't afford private ones. Am I seriously going to have to catch a wild one? Catch? Catch what? A honeybug or a sparrowling? If you must pick, I'd go with a sparrowling. At least it's a low-tier, low-level beast, right? Just be careful not to get a hole pecked in your hand. I was joking, obviously. Honestly, though, contracting a first beast is crucial. No matter what, I wouldn't pick a honeybug or sparrowling. Might as well give up on my future as a beast master altogether. I think I'll get a loan for a low-tier, mid-level one. If it's under 500,000, my family should be able to manage it. Same here. My family's thinking along those lines, too. Didn't the government and the Alliance team up a few years back to offer student loans? As long as the family's stable and you've got a good track record, it's not too hard to get a low-tier, high-level Transcendent Beast loan. Anything higher, though, forget it. Out of our league. Hey, how many of us are applying for Alliance loans? Want to go as a group? There might be group discounts or extra grants. Strength in numbers, right? As soon as that idea was mentioned, it gained traction fast. Excluding Lucas, who'd gotten into the Alliance's breeding center, plus the 4 classmates from wealthier families, and 2 who'd already contracted honeybugs and sparrowlings in their first year, everyone else, 21 classmates in total, minus Asher, signed up for the group application. After tallying up the numbers, they quickly realized that someone was missing. Had Asher join us for the Alliance loan application. You might not qualify for a huge loan, but with your grades, you've got a shot at a low-tier, mid-level beast. With some luck, maybe even a low-tier, high-level one. Their teacher, Mr. Arthur, who knew Asher's situation well, chimed in with a message too. Asher, don't stress too much about loans. Working for the Alliance to pay it off isn't shameful. Once you're an official Beast Master, you'll pay it back eventually. Don't throw away a bright future because of a little short-term hardship. The teacher and his classmates were all genuinely looking out for him. Reading through the messages, Asher felt a warmth spread through him. At least he could tell these classmates are decent people. Inviting him to join the loan application came from a good place. If it weren't for his fortunate special help, well, alright, I still wouldn't have gone. He'd rather take care of a honey bug, raise it well, and evolve it into a fairy butterfly. That didn't sound bad at all. Asher, thanks, class teacher, and thanks, everyone, for your concern. But I've already contracted a pet, so I won't be joining you on this. After a moment's thought, Asher sent another message. Asher, I managed to pull some strings. Word is, Professor Iris from Blue Wind University is about to publish a new paper. If you're not in a rush, maybe hold off and see if it'll help you. Can't say too much for now, though. Once the news about the honey bug evolving into a fairy butterfly got out, Asher figured more students in similar situations might start considering it. He didn't know for sure, but he had a feeling. Chapter 22, Heading to the Battle Center. As soon as Asher's inside scoop hit the class chat, the group exploded with messages. Professor Iris from Blue Wind University? Those who'd heard of her were stunned. Those who hadn't immediately searched her up online, and were first captivated by her looks, then by the long list of accolades and research papers under her name. One look at those credentials, and everyone's expressions shifted to amazement. They were all dying to know more. By all accounts, it seemed unlikely that someone like Iris would cross paths with Asher. Even their class teacher, Mr. Arthur, couldn't sit still. Class teacher, Asher, are you sure about this? Asher, certain, but I can't go into too much detail yet. Professor Iris didn't tell me to keep it a secret, but it's best to wait for her paper to come out. That way, everyone will trust it more. Exactly. It was one thing for Asher to claim he could evolve a honey bug. It was another for Iris to publish a paper about it. Which one would be more convincing? Reassured by his confidence, nearly half of his classmates started to waver. Maybe they should wait a bit longer? But some remained resolute, determined to find a beast with great potential over the break. Opinions varied, so Asher stayed out of it. He'd done his part, given them the information he could. The rest was up to them. Soon, his friend Vicky sent him a few private messages. Vicky, hey son, are you serious about what you said in the group? Asher, it's legit. Why? Doesn't have much to do with you anyway, right? You already contracted a dragon-tooth lizard. Asher searched his memories. Vicky's family was slightly above average, and Vicky had an unfiltered, boisterous personality, often referring to himself as Asher's old man, either calling him son or going with Big Asher or Little Asher for kicks. Thanks to a few shared quirks and a bit of rivalry, the two got along surprisingly well. Vicky had bought a dragon-tooth lizard in the second semester of his second year, a whopping 3.4 million yuan for a mid-tier, high-rank beast. Although the dragon-tooth lizard wasn't a true dragon, it was no trivial beast to have the word dragon in its name. With a slight resemblance to a dragon and a fire attribute, it had overwhelming attack potential and was worth every dollar for its potential. The only downside was that dragon-tooth lizards had a long maturation period and couldn't skip it with resources. They were slow but powerful, advancing in later stages. Though capped at mid-tier, once it evolved, it was guaranteed to become at least a high-tier, low-rank beast, a twin-winged dragon-tooth. Among the few classmates who had bought and contracted beasts, Vicky's dragon-tooth was among the best. So in theory, Vicky should just be a bystander to this news. For him to ask, there had to be a reason. Vicky, it's that Ronnie, that jerk. Ugh, he's been talking trash, hinting that you're no big deal. With your confirmation, I'll be off to shut him up. A faint smirk curved Asher's lips. He'd always known that the 4 students in class who'd contracted their own beasts were in a bit of a small clique. Their relationships weren't necessarily good. It was more for constant bickering and battle challenges. Ronnie's family was a bit less well-off than Vicky's, and he'd contracted a mid-tier, mid-rank Thunderfang tiger. With a lightning attribute, it also boasted incredible offensive strength. He and Vicky didn't get along well, and their beasts, the Dragontooth and Thunderfang tiger, seemed to have a natural rivalry, like dragons and tigers unable to coexist. Over the past 6 months, the two had frequently butted heads through beast battles. As someone from an ordinary background who was close to Vicky, Asher had also become a target of Ronnie's casual jabs. The implication in his words was always that they were from different worlds, and without contracting a powerful beast, Asher wouldn't stand a chance in the core circle of the Beast Tamer alliance. He'd just be a mediocre, second-rate Beast Tamer at best. Thinking back, Asher shook his head. At 17, he hadn't taken that nonsense to heart. Now even less so. Asher, go all out. I've got your back. It's big news, after all. Vicky, all right. I'm bringing out the big guns today to take him down. With Asher's blessing, Vicky charged off. Ah, youth with all that endless energy. Asher, on the other hand, would just sit this one out. After stowing away his phone, he glanced over at Little Raven, who had rolled over in its sleep. With Little Raven's current skills, maybe it is time for a trip to the battle center to test things out. The day before he planned to go, he received a voice call from June. Woohoo! This is amazing. Little Firefox finally learned a new skill. June was practically in tears on the other end of the line. It's the first one. The very first skill Little Firefox learned on its own. You can't imagine how hard that was. June sniffled, her voice filled with pride. I'm bringing Little Firefox over right now. You have to see her progress. Asher quickly declined. I'm about to get off work. Are you asking me to work overtime? Let's meet tomorrow. It's the weekend tomorrow. Don't think I don't know you're off. June shouted playfully, clearly miffed. Anyone could tell the young lady was getting feisty. Asher sighed. All right, since this heiress insists, and since I am still hoping to get a skill out of Little Firefox. Calmly, Asher said, I'm taking Little Raven to the battle center for trainee Beast Tamers tomorrow. You can join us if you like. June's voice softened. Huh? You're taking Little Raven to the battle center? Great idea. Are you looking for an opponent? Let me do it. I'll let Little Firefox go against Little Raven, she said excitedly. Yip yip, yip yip ow. Little Firefox, cradled in June's arms, joined in, letting out eager sounds. Need a sparring partner? She's in. June had always loved battles, and Little Firefox was fearless as well. Now that Little Firefox had learned a new skill, both June and her pet were eager to show it off. All right, tomorrow at 9 a.m. at the trainee battle center in the city. You're here early. With her high ponytail and sporty crop top and skirt, June looked fresh and energetic as she called out to Asher, hands on her hips. Next to her, Ivy, dressed in a knee-length, light blue sundress, gave a shy, apologetic smile. Sorry, we're a little late. A real man wouldn't fuss about it. It was only 20 minutes. June teased, her wide eyes gleaming. Asher sighed. I didn't say anything. You're the one who rushed in with excuses. June pouted, but held her tongue. Checking the time, he noted it was almost 9:30. Turning to the two girls, he asked, Had breakfast yet? Both shook their heads. It was the weekend, after all. Who wakes up early on a day off? Besides, breakfast? Weren't 3 meals supposed to be lunch, dinner, and midnight snacks? Let's grab breakfast first, then we'll head in. With a wave of his hand, Asher set the plan. June and Ivy followed obediently, linking arms as they walked behind him. None of them noticed the envious, almost hateful stares from the surrounding crowd. Here was a tall, handsome young man with 2 beautiful girls at the battle center entrance, casually chatting about breakfast. The 2 girls were stunning and well-mannered. All around them, solo boys with their pets, here for their own battles, couldn't help turning red with envy. Unfair. 2 of them? He has 2. They didn't even have one. Asher had no idea what they were thinking, but even if he did, he'd probably just smile at them. After breakfast, he led June and Ivy into the battle center. The arena was even larger than Asher had anticipated. The battle center had 2 levels. The first floor was open and had several public battle arenas, where trainee Beast Tamers could fight for free by scanning their ID cards. Spectator seats around the floor were open to paying viewers. The second floor required reservations and hosted private arenas. Entry wasn't cheap, but it offered privacy, and only the fighters could invite others to watch. Asher opted for one of the open arenas on the first floor. Seeing him approach with two girls, several young Beast Tamers looked like they wanted to challenge him. But June stepped forward. "Let's go. Little Fox and me has been looking forward to this whole night." Chapter 23. First Battle. Little Raven vs. Little Fire Fox. Around them, the single Beast Tamers who'd hoped to impress the girls let out collective sighs. Almost had a chance, but it turned out that guy wasn't here to show off. He'd actually come to battle with them. Though slightly relieved, the crowd couldn't help feeling a bit puzzled. Wait, so he's on a date with these beauties and actually wants to battle. Is he serious? Feeling all those stares from the crowd, Asher raised a brow in confusion. Isn't everyone here for battles? But before he could give it much thought, June was already on the battle stage, shouting impatiently. "Stop dawdling. If you're too scared, let Ivy go first." Asher shook his head, casting aside his doubts. Right now, the most important thing was the battle in front of him. For contracted beasts, it was only through combat that they could truly grow, learning to wield their skills with flexibility and power. Asher stepped up, standing opposite June. She crossed her arms, looking fired up. "This is your first battle with Little Raven, right? Well, don't worry. I won't go easy on you. Consider this your first lesson in Beast Tamer battles." June's tone made it clear she thought she had this match in the bag. Ivy, hands clasped nervously, watched Asher with a bit of concern in her gaze. June noticed immediately. "Ivy, aren't you supposed to be on our side? Why are you looking so worried about him?" Ivy, "Oh, oops, haha." Her smile was shy, her stance wobbly. June didn't want to get mad at her bestie, so she just shot Asher a dramatic eye roll. "Bring it on." The sleek, glossy little fire fox stepped forward, swaying with a cute yet graceful stride as it entered the arena. Asher released Little Raven from the beast space as well. "Little Raven, right here." Asher pointed to the area outlined in white for the battle. "You've got this." With a determined glint in its eye, Little Raven spread its wings, puffing up proudly as it half flew, half tumbled its way to the designated spot. Flying may not be its thing yet, but that didn't mean it couldn't look cool. For a moment, Asher almost wanted to hide his face. Pfft. Ivy couldn't help but giggle, covering her mouth with her long, fair fingers when Asher glanced her way, her eyes still sparkling with mirth. She tried her best, but she just couldn't hold it in. The referee took his place at the side and called out, "Both beasts are in position." The rules are simple. The match ends when one side surrenders or loses combat ability, at which point the other side is declared the winner. "Now, 3, 2, 1, begin." At the referee's shout, both Asher and June's eyes sharpened. The battle was on. Little Raven, Eagle Eye. Little Raven's beady eyes were already brimming with fighting spirit, but the moment Asher called out, they turned steely, a heavy pressure radiating from its gaze. It was as if Little Raven's stare had turned into a solid weight, bearing down on Little Fire Fox. Little Fire Fox's body trembled uncontrollably. What an intense aura! June's eyes went wide with surprise. Eagle Eye? Is this level of intimidation really possible with Eagle Eye? She could hardly believe it. Fortunately, her battle experience quickly kicked in, and she regained her composure. "Little Fire Fox, close your eyes. Don't look at it." Eagle Eye's intimidation worked through eye contact, so all they needed to do was avoid the gaze. "Yip yip," Little Fire Fox whimpered softly. It was trying its best to move, to look away, to not keep staring. But caught off guard, Little Fire Fox was completely stunned by Little Raven's strike. The overwhelming fear had paralyzed it, even making the simple act of closing its eyes a struggle. The surrounding crowd of single Beast Tamers let out low murmurs of surprise. Is this for real? Initially, they had been drawn in by Asher showing up with two girls, thinking he was just here to impress them. But when they realized he wasn't here to show off but to battle, they'd almost walked away. Then, hearing it was his first battle, their interest was piqued. A newbie, going up against a girl with solid battle experience? Respect to Asher for having the guts to take her on. Not every guy could handle losing to a girl. Truthfully, No one thought Asher could beat June in his very first battle, especially when her beast was a rare little firefox. Asher's chances seemed slim. But the moment Little Raven's eagle eye took effect, leaving Little Firefox visibly shaken, everyone's jaws dropped. They began murmuring, "What kind of pet beast is that? Anyone recognize it?" Hard to say. It kind of looks like an oriental peacock, but the size and color seem off. Maybe it's a variant? But oriental peacocks fly, and this bird looks too round to take off. Whose variant would be too heavy to fly? Could be a downside of the mutation. Its aura might be stronger, but its body has some limitations. At that theory, the crowd fell in a thoughtful silence. It did make some sense. Now, they were even more reluctant to leave. A rare little firefox versus what might be a mutated oriental peacock. The outcome had just become uncertain. Asher, meanwhile, was fully focused on the battle, tuning out everything else. Seeing Little Firefox deeply shaken, he was surprised but seized the chance immediately. Little Raven Peck. Peck was Little Raven's only offensive move. Neither Asher nor Little Raven would pass up this rare opening. In an instant, Little Raven's plump, rounded body launched forward like a bolt of black lightning. No one saw exactly how it moved, but in the blink of an eye, Little Raven was on Little Firefox's back, raising its soft yellow beak and delivering a sharp peck straight to the fox's waist. Yip yip ow! Little Firefox let out a heart-wrenching wail as it collapsed heavily onto the ground. The crowd's eyes widened in disbelief. No way, no way. Did this mutated oriental peacock just take out its opponent in one move? Little Firefox roll over and shake it off. June's heart ached for her pet, but with the battle ongoing, she couldn't just give up. She had to act fast. The intense pain helped Little Firefox snap out of the eagle eye's intimidation, giving it control over its body again. Enduring the pain, Little Firefox rolled across the ground in a frantic attempt to throw Little Raven off. Caught off guard, Little Raven's claws lost their grip, and it was tossed to the ground. Now's our chance. Little Firefox, fireball. Ping-pong-sized fireballs began launching one after another, speeding straight toward Little Raven. Chapter 24. The Flaw of Theoretical Knowledge. Boom, boom, boom. Each fireball was nearly half the size of Little Raven's body. Little Raven rolled and darted, narrowly dodging as each fireball hit the ground, leaving a scorched pit. The power was obvious. Just as Little Raven managed to avoid the fireballs, Little Firefox launched another attack. Fire blast! Little Firefox took a confident step forward, lifting its head with pride. Flames surged from its open mouth, sweeping toward Little Raven. Little Raven, scrambling to evade, had no time to track Little Firefox's movements and was soon engulfed in the searing flames. It couldn't even cry out, but its painful expression said it all. Finally, Little Raven collapsed, completely exhausted, unable to continue. The referee made the call without hesitation. One side has lost combat capability. Little Firefox wins. As the flames around Little Raven faded, Asher hurried over, gently cupping the weakened Little Raven in his hands. Little Raven, in response, Little Raven gave a faint flutter of its wings, weakly patting Asher's palm. No need to worry. I'm alive. Just give me a minute. Little Raven lay there, feigning death. Asher couldn't help but laugh. After a careful inspection, he was relieved to find that while Little Raven's feathers were slightly singed, there were no serious injuries. Thank goodness. On the other side, Little Firefox raised its head with pride, letting out a victorious yip and strutting back to June with an unmistakable look of "Praise me, please." "Don't get too cocky," June chuckled, crouching down to give Little Firefox's head a rough pat. Just before Little Firefox could protest, June scooped it up and approached Asher. "Is Little Raven okay? Should we go to the service center to get its injuries treated?" June offered. Little Raven was amazing. It really put the pressure on Little Firefox at the start. Yip yip! Little Firefox let out a disgruntled yip. Why bring up the embarrassing part? Didn't I win in the end? June ruffled Little Firefox's head again, not letting it get away with sulking. Have you looked at your own level? And Little Raven's? Plus, this was Little Raven's first battle. Losing is only natural. Little Firefox, still a little huffy, turned its head away from June, focusing intently on Asher's cupped hands instead. Ivy stepped forward, gently petting Little Firefox's head. You did amazing, Little Firefox. You deserve the praise. But Little Raven was impressive too, wasn't it? Little Firefox leaned into Ivy's hand, finally letting out a contented sigh. Yip yip. Amazing, sure, but still no match for me. At that sound, Little Raven, who had been quietly playing dead in Asher's hand, suddenly perked up. Sensing its movement, Asher quickly enclosed Little Raven a bit tighter in his hands, preventing it from launching itself back at Little Firefox for a rematch. Even with Asher's grip, Little Raven still struggled, flapping its wings insistently. If only Little Raven could talk, Asher felt sure it'd be spewing all sorts of complaints. Say what? What did that big-tailed fox just say? Little Raven fixed its intense gaze on Little Firefox, its beady eyes gleaming with a serious glint. Little Firefox froze, feeling like it was being stared down by some fierce predator. June looked down at Little Firefox, puzzled. Asher gently stroked Little Raven, soothing it. All right, let's not hold grudges. Let's head to the service center and get patched up. Okay. Of course, the battle center had a treatment station nearby, equipped with the latest medical equipment. Even if a beast was severely injured, the center's technology could bring it back from the brink. For minor injuries like Little Raven and Little Firefox's, recovery would be quick and easy. After a bit more gentle coaxing, Little Raven finally withdrew its glare, and Little Firefox, feeling less threatened, gradually relaxed. June and Ivy led the way, guiding Asher to the treatment station. The crowd that had gathered to watch the match looked after them with a mix of surprise, confusion, and an odd sense of disappointment. It was just so unexpected. Each twist in the battle had them holding their breath. First, everyone thought the Oriental Peacock was doomed, but then it displayed what seemed like a unique mutation. Then, they thought the Oriental Peacock had the upper hand, only for Little Firefox to seize control in a relentless counterattack. They'd watched, deeply invested in the outcome. But just as quickly as it ended, the contestants left without a word. What were they supposed to do now? Were they just spectators in some couples bonding time? All right, show's over. Maybe they're just a pair of lovebirds spicing things up with a friendly battle. Heartbroken single spectators grew even more heartbroken. So they'd just been background props for a couple's bonding moment? The treatment process was simple. It was like putting in pizza in an oven. Open, place inside, close. 3 minutes later, they emerged fully healed. Little Raven and Little Firefox's injuries were completely gone. The costs were reasonable as well. Since this was a licensed battle center with a standard subsidy, the fee for contracted beasts came to $200 for Asher and $500 for June. Why did I pay more? June asked, baffled. Not that she minded the money. Usually, the fee is based on injury severity, right? Little Firefox won, so its injury should be lighter than Little Raven's. The staff member operating the machine pointed to the display screen above. It shows that treating Little Firefox used more energy, so it costs slightly more. As for why the winner's treatment required more energy, don't ask him. He's just an operator. June looked at Little Raven, who was now standing sulkily in Asher's hand, with a mixture of curiosity and puzzlement. Asher also felt a bit helpless. Compared to its minor physical injuries, it was clear that losing had taken a toll on Little Raven's pride, especially since Little Raven had such a proud nature. Asher sighed, lightly patting the tuft on top of Little Raven's head. You did far better than I'd expected, Little Raven, Asher said softly. Thanks to his special ability, Little Raven looked up, its eyes widening in surprise. It tilted its head, the dark orbs in its eyes glimmering slightly. Did I really do well? If I were really strong, I wouldn't have lost. Somehow, Asher always seemed to understand what it was thinking. No, Little Raven. Part of the loss is on me, Asher said with a smile, calmly analyzing the battle. When you were attacked, I didn't think to tell you to use Guardian Heart right away. That was my mistake. He felt a twinge of regret. It turns out real battles were a lot different from games or the theory he'd read. Unlike turn-based games, Real battles didn't have an orderly one move, then the other. An opponent wouldn't stand there, waiting for you to make your move. In battle, it was all about seizing the advantage. The moment Little Raven began to lose ground to the fireballs and then fell under the fire blast, only about 30 seconds had passed. In that brief moment, Asher, more of a theory buff than an experienced battler, couldn't react fast enough. June had capitalized on his inexperience, securing her victory. This battle had revealed Asher's limitations. His lack of experience in actual combat meant his reactions were a step behind real-time combat demands. "Will you forgive me, Little Raven?" Asher looked down at it with genuine remorse. "I promise I'll do better next time. I won't let you down again." Little Raven, 0v0. Little Raven felt like something was off, but then again, maybe it wasn't? Well, Little Raven hopped up onto Asher's shoulder, nuzzling against the hollow of his collarbone. "Nestle, Nestle. All right, you're forgiven. Next time, let's give it our all and beat that big-tailed fox." Chapter 25, Personal Attack. Little Raven perked up, brimming with energy again. Perched on Asher's shoulder, it nestled near his cheek, looking at Little Fire Fox with a spark of determination in its gaze. It lost this time, but next time it would not be the one to fall. It would grow stronger, and its beast master would grow stronger too. Little Raven absolutely adored its gentle, comforting beast master. Next to them, June and Ivy exchanged strange looks as they observed Asher. "So, this is the real Asher?" June wanted to say, "Don't spoil your pet too much, or it'll get out of hand." And there he is, taking all the blame on himself. For some reason, an image of Asher comforting a girlfriend popped into June's mind. She shook her head. No, no, no. This single guy surely didn't have a girlfriend. It must be my imagination. Just then, she glanced down and noticed Little Fire Fox in her arms, whining softly. "Yip, yip, yip." With big, pleading eyes, Little Fire Fox seemed to be asking, "Why can't you be gentle with me like him?" June immediately cast aside her previous thoughts and began bickering with Little Fire Fox. "If I pampered you like that, you'd probably end up floating up into the sky." Before, June had never given it much thought. She wasn't big on structured training. She preferred letting her pet have fun and relax. When her little fox evolved into Little Fire Fox, she assumed it was just a natural process due to its potential. It wasn't until recently, during this past half-month, that June started truly grasping her Little Fire Fox's personality while working together. It loved snacks, enjoyed playtime, and disliked training. Its battle strategy? Relying entirely on natural talent. If she pampered it even more, she'd soon be the poster child for spoiling your pet too much. Unintentionally, June had become stricter with Little Fire Fox. Both she and the fox were struggling to adjust to this change. They were finally entering a real phase of trial and error, where they needed to find their new balance. As they bantered, Asher led Ivy and June toward the exit. "Do you want to battle too, Ivy?" he asked Ivy, who had been mostly silent. Ivy considered this. "Maybe next time. I'm still practicing skill coordination with Nene, and I'd like to improve a bit more before our match." She blushed slightly, looking at Asher. Asher nodded. No problem with that, while Little Raven seemed thrilled at the thought of another battle. Of course, Asher didn't understand the complex, grand ideas swirling around in Little Raven's head. He was still casually chatting with Ivy. Beside them, June and Little Fire Fox were still squabbling. Their three figures together painted a harmonious scene. That's when an oily, smug voice sounded behind them. "June, don't tell me you turned down my invitation for someone like him." Asher's steps halted. Is someone throwing shade at me?" He looked up and saw a young man about their age standing ahead, dressed in designer brands, with a carefully styled hairdo that must have taken time to perfect. But maybe a little too flashy. With all the glitter on his clothes, pants, and shoes, he was practically a walking disco ball. Nobody dared approach within a meter of him, as his entire demeanor screamed, "I'm rich and untouchable." In stark contrast to Asher, who was just wearing a simple white t-shirt, jeans, and sneakers, blending into any crowd. While Asher studied this newcomer, the young man was sizing him up in return. Upon seeing little Raven on Asher's shoulder, a look of disgust crossed his face. "What's it to you, Don?" June, who had just been arguing with her fox, ended the spat in an instant, clutching little Firefox in one arm and putting her other hand on her hip. Anger flashed across her face. "What was that look for, huh? Asher and Ivy are my friends. Who I hang out with is none of your business. Who do you think you are?" The fact that June hadn't even told anyone about today's plans only made her angrier. "Did you follow me here, Don? Are you some kind of creep?" Don folded his arms. "Oh, so you still know my name, huh? I'm not a creep. This is just a coincidence." He spread his hands, an exaggerated expression of "prove it if you can" on his face. "Anyway, I have no issue with Ivy. But this guy," his gaze swept over Asher full of disdain. "A mutated oriental peacock? Don't tell me this is the so-called genius you said could help evolve your little Firefox." By the end, his tone had turned mocking and sarcastic. "Ah, he looks like a poor nobody who can't even afford to raise a mutant pet." "June, don't tell me you've fallen for some scam. I told you if you just stuck with me, I'd guarantee your little Firefox would evolve. I could even offer you choices far beyond what this nobody could manage." New choices. Asher's interest peaked. From the look of things, this guy Don clearly liked June. And, yeah, he seemed to have a personal issue with Asher. Well, Asher could understand that. Even if he didn't have any particular interest in June, he was a good-looking guy and thus a natural threat to any love-struck competitor. As for jealousy, rivalries, and the whole bickering over a girl thing, Asher wasn't interested in that drama. He'd rather spend time sunbathing with little Raven. But what does he mean by new choices? Lost in thought, Asher found himself wondering. New choices? Is he talking about another possible evolution for little Firefox? That didn't seem entirely unlikely. Evolution research had been booming for the last 2 centuries, leading to opportunities like the League's rewards and resources offered to him for his discovery of Nene's evolution path. If there were other scholars investigating a new evolutionary route for little Firefox, that would be pretty normal. It sounded like Don's hinting that a new path might be near completion. Still mulling it over, Asher turned to leave. It was getting a little too noisy here. A guy who harasses girls has 0 class. He tossed out the comment over his shoulder and didn't look back. He wasn't interested in other people's relationship issues. Better to go sunbathe with little Raven. June shouted after him, "Hey, Asher, where are you going?" she called as she chased after him, her voice loud and annoyed. Don moved to block her, but Asher's words froze him in his tracks. "TCH, who's the classless one here?" Before he realized it, June and Ivy had already disappeared. Outside, the sun was a bit too strong. June and Ivy had both taken out parasols. Meanwhile, Asher strolled ahead with little Raven, unbothered by the scorching heat above. "Asher, don't be mad," June stammered, trying to find the right words. "Don is just a jerk. He never says anything decent. Don't let it get to you." Asher turned to her, surprised. Mad? No, I'm not mad." June looked skeptical. "But you said that thing and then just left. Isn't that because you're mad?" Ivy nodded, clearly on the same page. She also thought Asher had left in anger. Reading their expressions, Asher chuckled, speaking in a calm, light-hearted tone. "I'm really not mad. Why get mad over someone who doesn't even know how to speak like a decent person, right?"
Don't forget to like and subscribe.